I am Chalfant, and this is Chalfant TV.
Let's go, 고개. 대취타, 버스 타지 말고 타, 대취타, 집에 갈 때 대취타, 버스 타, 집에 갈 때 버스 타, 집에 갈 때 버스 타. 형 뒤에서 춤추고 있다고.
저기 신난 거 같은데 아닌가?
저 앞에? 우리 여유롭게 가자. 조용히.
What's up, everybody? I'm Chalfant, and welcome to Chalfant TV. I'm an educator and school principal, and on this channel, we dive deep into BTS. I post videos at the same time each and every day. I just wrapped up about a 3-week dive into Hobie because it was his birthday, and I did the same thing for Tae during his birthday. And now I'm going to be learning a lot more about Yoongi. So just a little bit of insight before we get started and my plans for learning more about Yoongi. I do have plans to go through all of his solo tracks, including both of his mixtapes, look at some of his pre-debut music as well. And I think I'll probably space some things out just based on timing. And I know that I'll react to some BTS music in between as well. And I'll probably watch some funny clips of Yoongi, of course dive into his music, react to some of the documentaries as well. So I hope you're ready for that. And I figured what better way to start off than watching and reacting to Daechwita. I feel like I know a little bit about Suga, and I feel like out of all of the members of BTS, he and I have the most connections in terms of just growing up in poverty and kind of having this hard outward layer. And I'm really excited to just kind of peel off that and get to know him a little bit more too, and also to get to know Agust D a little bit as well. So today's episode is probably going to have 7 parts. I'm going to watch the music video, vibe out to the song a little bit. I'll end up rewatching the music video and look at the lyrics and dive into the meaning of the song. There's a shooting sketch, which is kind of just like behind the scenes. There's a sword practice. I have 2 explanation videos, one from DK TV and the other from Bookish Theories. I found that watching more than one explanation video sometimes is really helpful because they focus on different things. And then there's also a Daechwita music video versus reality. And I'm wondering what that might be, and it could potentially be a video that I have to just turn off if I don't like what the content of it is, but we'll have it up here just in case. So let's go ahead and get into Agust D Daechwita's music video. I feel like I've seen this picture so many times. Feels like a movie. Ooh. Goosebumps. I didn't realize that was people. You know, I've talked a lot about how Hobie's songs are so unique and sound different, and I'm excited to see and hear the same thing with Yoongi, because he kind of has that flow sometimes where he'll sound different so many different ways inside one song, and I can already feel that right now. This is like a movie. See another part. Look at those acting skills too. Wow. Wow, I didn't know what I expected from that, but I don't think I expected that either. It was almost like so cinematic. And of course the ending where it looks like he was supposed to be killed and then flip the script a little bit. I felt this while diving into Hobie, and I know it's definitely going to be like that or even more with Suga, but it's one thing to like dive into the lyrics of BTS, but when you try and figure out the meaning of the songs like through Suga's raps, there's going to be like 2 or 3 times as many words to be able to go through too, and I know his is just as deep as anything else. Anyway, and that music video was crazy deep, or as Cookie would say, hella deep. So now I'm going to watch the music video shooting sketch.
제 이제 믹스테이프 D2 타이틀 대취타 왕 역할이에요. 이제 미쳐버린 왕 역할을 해야 돼요. 일단 좀 다른 거예요. 4년 전 그 어거스트 D 걔는 이제 왕이 됐고 유명 어거스트 D가 대립을 하는. 이2 타이틀 기타는요, 막 가사적인 부분보다는 되게 청각적인 재미에 좀 더 치중이 되어 있는 거라 이 시각적인 거랑 청각적인 거에만 집중을 해주시면 좋을 것 같아요. 되게 재밌을 것 같아서 이걸 타이틀로 한 거라. 지금 오늘 마지막 씬인데요. 저 원형 감옥에 묶여가지고 랩을 하는 씬인데 지금 해가 안 져가지고 좋습니다. 이틀차 시작했습니다. 시작했는데 콘서트 하나가 벌써 끝났네요. 오늘 순조롭게 재밌는
So much went into this. Oh, look who it is.
BTS를 생각하시면 지금 저희는 배우? 김정진이랑 배우 정우입니다.
Actor.
여기가 이렇게 한 번만 나와달라고
Wow.
한 번만 와달라고
Look at Jin. You know, I was wondering when he ran into somebody, I was like, oh, he looks familiar, but I totally didn't catch that.
너무 멋있네. 눈에 왜 띄었어요?
야 어저께 너무 두 명이 잘 나와야지 여기 끝이 나. 대취타 아니 뮤비 잘 나올 것 같아. 뮤비 진짜 열심히 잘 나왔으면 좋겠어요. 고마웠습니다. 어거스트 D
Fighting. Yeah, yeah.
방탄소년단
Fighting.
파이팅!
내 칼. 백성 무사히 보여요. 저기 보면 엉마들이 있어요. 랩할 때 신하들을 밟고 다니는 거. 한중에 있는 걸 굳이 우리나게 이틀 전에 배워가지고
Belatedly.
아 이거 뭐 물집도 잘 피우고 있어요?
Sounds so effortless.
그 구축간에서 왜 그 사람과 눈을 마주치는지 뮤비를 조심하시면 구축간의 그 망나니 역할을 하고 있어요. 왕을 몰아내고 있어요. 그래 한 거지.
He's got such a great look.
D2 대취타 잘 끝났는데 너무 재밌는 촬영이었습니다. 이게 좀 기대돼요. 어거스트 D2 많이 사랑해주세요. 대취타도 많이 사랑해주세요. 안녕.
Alright, well, Yoongi said it himself to focus on the visuals and not as much on the lyrics, but I'm gonna do that now. I'm gonna rewatch the music video and look at the lyrics and just see what he put into that. If it's anything like I expect from Yoongi, I know it's probably gonna be meaningful anyway. Wonder if those people are dead. It's like switching in between his alter egos. I'm just imagining him write this, right? It's like one constant flow, but it's clearly going from like perception to perception, one back to the other in one constant flow, and that's pretty awesome to see. I wonder if that was his head. I thought he had spit there. I don't think I expected this part. I didn't notice all of them banging their heads too. Psych. I also wonder, you know, when the Mad King was holding up the box earlier, like if that's the same box that had the gun in it. You know, that would be interesting, you know, to the meaning of all of it. I feel like song aside, you know, that music video was so good. And I know it was designed to have that movie feel. I think it lived up to that for sure. Now I'm going to watch DK TV's explanation of Daechwita.
SUGA has delivered another hard-hitting mixtape titled D2. The first Agust D album, released in 2016, focused on the tough times SUGA faced when he was a teenager. SUGA's at a very different place now. He's much older and he's much more successful. And this album focuses on the changes of his feelings after becoming one of music's biggest superstars. It's a very honest album, and my personal favorite off of this is the title track, 대취타. It's an ultimate flex track slash warning slash reminder with tons of historical references, so let's take a look into it.
I haven't seen him explain before. What's the other guy's name? David?
대취타 Daechwita is Korean traditional marching music that was played when kings or royalty were moving about or important guests would visit, as well as when army would be marching. There are two main characters in this music video, a King Suga and a bottom class Suga. We can see that the King Suga is a tyrant. He has everyone kneeling down with the faces down in the ground. And he beheads people who have complaints in this scene. You can see the Shinmungo here. People in the Joseon dynasty would hit this drum if they had something that they've been wronged. They'd hit this drum and the king or someone up in the hierarchy would come and sort out their problems. Except here, King Suga is killing the people who have such complaints and issues. But the bottom class Suga, with the help of BTS and army represented by the 6 other men and a woman in the scene, starts a coup. He drives up a car with the men representing BTS and also a cute painting of BANGTAN. By the way, this painting has its origins in a Jungkook drawing of BANGTAN. It's pretty funny. The King Suga sees this and gives a thumbs down and captures the bottom class Suga. The King Suga wants to kill him and does this graceful sword dance, which apparently Suga learned in 2 days. Meanwhile, bottom class Suga, blindfolded and tied down, starts headbanging, singing 대취타.
Almost like a new king is here.
Remember how I told you that Daechwita was played when kings were about, or when the army would be marching? The bottom class Suga singing this is an announcement that he is actually the real king. He feels like he's the king. The people under the king, the very ones that were kneeling to him in the beginning, are now joining Suga, headbanging with him. This Daechwita is also for them. These kneeling people are armies marching together with the bottom class Suga. At the end, the executioner who was supposed to take down the bottom class Suga actually frees him and gives him a gun. Bottom class Suga grabs this and shoots the king. I think the MV and the song is a metaphor for BTS and army taking down the existing system and the ruling forces of the industry. The King Suga represents the system, the existing system, the few powerful companies that had control over the industry before BTS came to the scene. Bottom class Suga is Suga himself in a small company with basically nothing, as if he was born into a bottom class, and winning the people over, eventually taking down the king with BTS and armies. I think Suga picked the perfect motif to convey his message. And if you look at the historical references, you'll be more amazed at how clever this all is. Well, this single verse has a lot to unpack, but let's just start with this line. The Joseon dynasty, which is most likely where the song is set in, had a strict class system where there was a heavy discrimination based on which class you were born into. Slaves were not even considered human. They would be traded in cases their owners didn't have enough money, and they were thought of more as just things. Think about the mistreatment that BTS received earlier on in their careers. They faced heavy discrimination due to them being from a small company, and they were mistreated. So it's easy to understand why Suga called himself a slave here. Slaves in Joseon were almost completely blocked off from advancing to higher classes. So for a slave to become a king is basically impossible. But Suga's saying he made it happen. The following line is a reference to Kwang Hae-gun, the king of Joseon dynasty in the 17th century. He developed paranoia while in power and notoriously became violent and reckless. Hence the line, Berserk Tiger, Kwang Hae flow. But I think there are more reasons Suga referenced Kwang Hae in the lyrics, especially if you consider what his life was like. Kwang Hae-gun had a very roller coaster of a life. Originally, he was a war hero, defending Joseon against the Japanese invasion of 1592, one of the biggest wars in Korean history. His father, who was then king, had fled when the war broke out, and the 18-year-old Prince Kwang Hae led Joseon troops in the battlefield. Rarely at this time did kings or to-be kings go out into the battlefield themselves. So Kwang Hae, fighting with the people, won their hearts over, and there were movements to throne him as the king instead of his father. The father felt threatened by this, so he made a lot of political efforts to stop Kwang Hae from gaining influence. Eventually, Kwanghae became stuck between two large political powers, and this struggle eventually made Kwanghae go paranoid and become violent and reckless. Ultimately, he was dethroned after a coup. I think Suga somewhat relates to Kwanghae as he himself had been through a tough adolescence, having to go out into the battlefield at an early age, just like Kwanghae did.
Well, and he's also stuck between these two different things, right? He's like a rapper, underground rapper, and then becomes an idol. And I just go back to that Be Free interview where he's like, how can you be considered anything outside of just an idol? You can't. So I think that probably ties into that. He's kind of stuck in between both of those things.
He was an idol with no money, from a small company stuck in an industry dominated by big corporations. When Suga started winning battles and gaining power, he must felt a lot of efforts from the existing big powers to keep him away from the throne, like what Kwanghae experienced from his father when the people wanted him to become the king. Suga mentions putting his past in the rice chest. For many Koreans, the word Twiju, or rice chest, is strongly connected to the tragic story of Sadoseja, which involves him dying in a rice chest. Sadoseja was the son of then King Yeongjo, and his father was extremely harsh on him, humiliating him and scolding him in front of others at a very early age. This became so severe that Sadoseja attempted to commit suicide a few times, but even then, he was treated terribly. He developed what modern doctors diagnose as bipolar disorder and began acting very violently. Eventually, the king ended up hating Sadoseja so much that he orders Sadoseja to go into a rice chest. Sadoseja went in, and he was stuck inside for 8 days and eventually starved to death. Wow. Sadoseja had a troubled life, filled with being humiliated and mistreated, and mental health issues just not being understood. Suga has been pretty open about his mental health issues he had when he was growing up, and I think he relates to Sadoseja. He sees himself in it. He says he's putting his past in the rice chest. It's a declaration that he's putting the old troubled Yoongi, the Sadoseja Yoongi, behind and looking at what's ahead of him. In the second verse, Suga focuses more on how he's now on the throne and he's better than everybody else. Suga directly name drops Bang PD and also takes a shot at other artists who do drugs thinking that they write better music while they're high. I won't name any names here, but I'm sure you can think of an artist or a few artists for that matter that will be at the butt end of this. Some in bigger companies, in fact.
Ooh, boy!
The diss aside, this line is also a glimpse into Bang PD's relationship with BTS. In a typical company, it'd be extremely difficult to even mention the name of your boss this openly without putting the honorifics Nim, especially considering how much a veteran and how much older Bang PD is compared to BTS. However, Suga name drops Bang PD as if he was his friend. We can sense that there is a very close bond and assume that Bang PD is very democratic with BTS. The fact that Suga is talking of Bang PD so casually is a flex of its own to others, as it's a sign that BTS has become so big and valuable to the company that he's at level with Bang PD. Now this is an interesting bit. Here Suga uses the Korean word hyunta. Hyunta is an interesting Korean slang that is used all around the internet. Directly translated as wise man's time, it is a word to describe the feeling you get right after you've ejaculated. Yes, ejaculated. You feel no more sexual urges and you have a moment of clarity in your brain. You feel still, present, and sometimes disappointed that the short moment of satisfaction was all you got and you worked so hard for it. This slang originated from Japan, but it has become a staple in Korean everyday language, and it is widely used in everyday life outside of sexual situations. Usually in situations when you finally got what you dearly wanted and you wonder, that was it? Suga's saying he's feeling extreme hyunta because he has it all. He has money, he has clothes, he has everything he ever wanted, and there's nothing, no one above him. While this could be considered a small cry for help, I think within the context of this song, it's more of a hard flex. He's saying, others can only dream of what I have, but now I got everything and I feel bored and disappointed. But you won't know how I feel because...
Well, there's nowhere else to go, right? Especially when you're on top.
BTS has been on the top for the past few years, absolutely dominating, with a level of popularity that has never been seen in K-pop before. They're so dominant that it's sometimes easy to forget that they too had humble beginnings. In fact, more humble than most top artists out now today. They had to fight their way through discrimination, mistreatment, and humiliation. 대취타 is a reminder that this was where they started, and they took that system down. And it's also a warning that they had the resilience and the force to go through all of this, to go from slave to king.
Alright, so here's the thing for me. I feel like I'm at a place now where I'm no longer surprised at the depth of BTS's music. And for me, how it always ties back to ARMY. And even in like their mixtape music videos, there's like ways for the members to include all of the other members, not just with, you know, Jin and Jungkook being in the music video, but literally like he's with 6 other people, and how that is like resemblant of BTS itself, using music that represents ARMY and like literally an army. But I do want to clarify, like, just because I'm no longer surprised doesn't mean I'm not continually blown away, and that's how I feel right now with this. Now I'm going to watch Suga's Daechwita sword dance practice.
명인한테서 성칼이에요. 자기한테 암더 보았을 때 딱 이렇게 자세 잡으시면서 이게 칼이 이렇게 올라오시다가 나는 이렇게 올라오다가 살짝 돌려서 이제 샤 이렇게 네, 칼 뒤를 싹 빼주면 우에하 올라왔다가 돌려서 타 암더 보 얘는 쫙 펴주고 한 다음에 자 올라가 내 이름 그죠? 그래서 하나 둘셋넷 저거를 하다가 그래서 슬슬 암더 킹한 먹고 아닌데 이러기가 그죠 그래서 왼발 나가시면서 그래서 싹 하신 다음에 자 이렇게 그래서 안 멈추시는데 안 돼 이게 아마 처음에 이거 계속 내가 이거 배는 느낌이 아니라 휘둘러 이렇게 옆날로 이렇게 휘둘러 멈춰야 되니까 뭐 킹 같은 거 보니까 막 화나서 이렇게 멈춰야 이렇게 배고 이걸 계속 하고 있어야 될 것 같아.
I'm sure that sword is heavy too.
이거 이 칼을 처음 받아가지고 대각선 올라와서 위에서 돌려서 싹 이렇게 잡아야지 돌아가라고. 네. 짧게 잡아야지. 네네. 뭐 자, 후, 둘, 셋, 네. 이게 혼자 잡으면 되게 짧아요. 이건 거의 이거를 베이스로 가지고 가서 멋있는 거 있으면 막 몇 개 하고 이렇게 하고. 노래 듣는 느낌 아니냐? 했을 때 그냥 어느 정도? 암더 히 암더 보 짜다라라라라라 그래서 싹 그죠 그죠
It's like I feel like I'm swinging it, not slicing it.
돌리는 것만 확실히 딱 멋있게 하면 사실 후 그죠 하고 배고 그죠 그때는 좀 더 오른쪽으로 가 있어야 할 거야. 얘 좀 더 빨리 들어가야 되고요. 지금 딱 하나 보는 거는 이 앞에 우리 준비할 때 좀 더 앞에서 들어와야 돼요.
One small mistake and you slide it across. Woo!
좀 많이 얻었어요. 제가.
네, 이번 대취타 여러분들 뭘 좋아하실지 몰라서 다 넣어봤습니다. 재밌게 봐주셨으면 좋겠어요. 재밌을 거예요, 뮤비.
Yes, and I do think we did like it. Now we're going to watch a video called Daechwita Music Video versus Reality. I'm guessing this might just show some behind the scenes or something like that.
BTS를 생각하시면 지금 저희는 배우 김서진이랑 배우 정민.
연기가 이렇게 한 번만 나와달라고 막 한 번만 와달라고 이래가지고.
I think I'm just going to stop there because it looks like they're just taking stuff from the shooting sketch and comparing it to the music video, and I've already seen both of those. So now I'm going to watch the explanation video from Bookish Theories.
Hello and welcome back to Bookish Theories. In today's video, we'd like to talk about Agust D's Daechwita, focusing on a little breakdown and analysis of both the lyrics and the visual masterpiece they passed as a music video. Daechwita is a song that, much like the mixtape as a whole, reflects on Yoongi, SUGA, and Agust D's current mindset and successes, as well as his artistic growth from 2016 to present day. The title of the song literally translates into great blowing and hitting, and it refers to a specific genre of traditional Korean military music which involves wind and percussion instruments. This musical genre is usually performed by the army while marching in parade for the king. So you know what you have to do the next time that you listen to this song. But in the instrumentals, these traditional sounds are mixed together with modern sounds that belong to both hip-hop and trap. And as it turns out, this fusion of tradition and modernity is also reflected in the music video, which shows us an epic confrontation between the ruthless King Min and the gang boss Agust D. At the beginning, the video opens with King Yoongi sitting on his phoenix throne and then proceeding to admire the decapitated bodies of his enemies laid out in the courtyard. Now, if
I didn't
you're a
notice
fan
the
of
boxes.
K-dramas, you probably recognize the palace here because the video was shot at Daejeon Park, a very popular filming location that was featured in a lot of historical dramas throughout the years. The styling for this setting was inspired by a mix of several Korean periods, but one of the major influences was definitely the Joseon dynasty, which, as we'll see in a second, is a major inspiration for the entire plot of the video. After being introduced to the king, the narrative then moves from the palace to the market, where we see a cameo of Jin and Jungkook picking a fight with each other, and we meet the character of the boss, which is the source of the king's future downfall and the leader of the coup that will take place later on. Right off the bat, the difference between these two characters is pretty evident. One is a king, the other a commoner. The first fights for himself, the second fights for the people. But what makes it even better is the way both the song and the video deal with the contrast between past and present. You see, in the lyrics, Agust D introduces himself as a king born as a slave. Now he wears a crown and flies on private jets, but this doesn't mean that he forgot where he came from, because as a matter of fact, he really didn't. He was born in a ditch but rose up to be a dragon, and he still remembers the days that led him to this point, which is the reason why he lives the way that he does and knows that he has quite a lot to lose. Now, judging by the lyrics alone, you would think that King Yoongi represents his present, while Agust D is a symbol of his past. But in the video, the king is associated with tradition, while the boss is driving a car in the middle of the palace. And this is important because, much like the scar on his face suggests, this contradiction implies that Yoongi is both of these people at the same time. On the one hand, he is a ruthless king to his enemies, who challenges the norm and is feared because of that. But on the other, he is still the voice of the people, the boss of a movement that is meant to break tradition with a modern perspective that represents those that support him. In both the song and the music video, this duality is also conveyed with a lot of cultural and historical references. The line "born as a slave but now a king," for instance, is a direct reference to the movie Masquerade, which is a period drama about King Gwanghae, who finds a double among the common people in order to protect himself from the constant threat of assassination. The events that we see in the video seem to be heavily inspired by the movie, but as it turns out, the references to this king go a lot deeper than that, because in the lyrics, Agust D compares his flow to the mad tiger Gwanghae. You see, Gwanghae was the 15th king of the Joseon dynasty, and even if modern scholars have been redeeming his name by praising his wisdom and strength, throughout history he was known to be a very violent and ruthless tyrant. Since he was the son of a concubine, Gwanghae was not the original successor to the throne, but because of his leadership skills and political abilities, he was appointed as crown prince and later on as the official successor instead of his older legitimate brother. Despite he defended his country even after the king ran away, his reputation during his rule was heavily affected by rumors that historians are now considering mostly false. And much like what we see in the video, his reign ended with a coup that happened overnight. Now, even judging by this little summary I just gave you, it's easy to see why Yoongi chose this character in the first place. Much like him, Gwanghae was not meant to be king but became one because of his talents. His reputation was consistently tainted by his enemies, and even if he defended his country, he was considered a tyrant that didn't deserve recognition. In the video, Agust D is now playing the tyrant that his haters make him out to be. They wanted a mad king and now they got it. And he's not messing around this time because he's coming straight for their heads. Even if they call him a pup, he's nothing like them, and he doesn't even need to flex to prove it because his enemy's pathetic behavior speaks for itself. This is because, much like he anticipated back in Give It To Me, he cannot live like a dog because he was born as a tiger. Now, the tiger is a very important symbol here because in Korean culture, it is an animal that represents courage and pride while still conveying a sense of superiority that inspires fear and respect. The tiger is a noble animal that has nothing to share with the dogs that bark for attention. They're just below him, so without any hesitation, he just kills them all. What's interesting here is that Yoongi is not saying that his success made him a tiger, but that he was born as a tiger, meaning that in comparison to his enemies, he is not superior because he's famous, he is superior because that's the way that it is. Now he may be king and he might be a dragon, but he was always a tiger, so while he shoves his past in a rice chest, he knows that he's standing on what it is. Now these lines here are very interesting because the rice chest is a reference to the story of Crown Prince Sado of the Joseon dynasty, who was executed by his own father and died of starvation inside of a rice chest. According to the story, Sado was put to death because he tried to kill the son of an official. But since according to the law the body of a royal could not be defiled, the king had to get creative and find a way to kill his son while keeping his body intact. The solution that he found was to tie him with a rope and seal him inside of a rice chest for 7 days. And even if this sounds like a horrible act, this method of execution actually spared the life of the prince's family and saved his legacy. Now, the fact that Yoongi is a king and is choosing to seal his past in a rice chest implies that he's finding an alternative way to deal with the struggles that doesn't involve a complete erasure. He knows that the past made him the person he is today, and he knows that he needs to acknowledge that in order to maintain his roles. But he's choosing to deal with his struggles privately, saving what needs to be saved and killing what needs to be killed. To a certain extent, we can say that this idea is also loosely portrayed in the video itself, because much like Prince Sado, Agust D is taken prisoner and tied with a rope. Now, Agust D here is the boss of the story, the man of the people and the past that is reclaiming his place in the present. He is the one who was there since day one and the part of him that people can relate to the most, because all the clothes, the money and the goals the king has in the present are the result of the dreams that the boss had in the past. It's thanks to him and his 6 gang members that revenues go up and BANGTAN dances in his studio. He is a genius that became a king because he realized that time is more valuable than money. But to his people, he's not a tyrant that lost touch with reality. He is a guide that can lead them to revolution. This idea is perfectly conveyed in the video because when Agust D is about to be killed, the executioner himself is the one who sets him free. Now, this part is very interesting because this scene was actually foreshadowed since the very beginning. If you look closely, the 2 executioners that we see in this scene right here are played by the same actors that play the butchers at the market. And this is not a coincidence because, as a matter of fact, they are the very same people. You see, these characters are a close reference to the BANGTAN, who were the untouchables of Korean society and were forced to be butchers and executioners because they were activities that were deemed despicable by society as a whole. Now, the fact that Agust D is being helped by one of the untouchables implies that his message is able to resonate with people that come from all walks of life. No matter who you are or where you come from, no matter how much people hate you or disrespect you, Agust D will be your voice and he will be your fighter. But once again, this reference goes even deeper than that, because if you look closely, Yoongi is wearing a necklace that looks exactly like the mask that is used to represent the BANGTAN in theater. This implies that not only he leads the untouchables, but that he identifies himself with them, meaning that even after all he has accomplished, he is still the untouchable of the system that he rules and that still wants to destroy him.
So deep.
If in Interlude Shadow he wanted to be king, and in Tony Montana he felt like Scarface, now he is the king and he is the boss. But people still come for his neck no matter what he does. This, however, does not change the fact that he is at the top. But this kind of power also implies a reality check, because by realizing that he cannot get any higher, Yoongi also accepts the fact that now it's time to look down and put his feet on the ground. Now, these lines here are very similar to the lyrics that we can find in Interlude Shadow, Black Swan, and on. And to a certain extent, this implies that the final confrontation between the king and the boss can be compared to the confrontation between the persona and the shadow. You see, for Yoongi not to become the tyrant that people make him out to be, he needs to stand his ground and look at himself in the face. Even if he's the king and he is the boss, he also understands that there is a limit to his greed, and in order not to overstep it, he has to kill the tyrant by wearing the mask of the untouchable. In a way, this is the part of him that the king might have hidden inside the rice chest. That side, that is, that represents the essence of his artistry and that is meant to give a voice to the voiceless. When you are at the top, it's easy to forget why you started in the first place, but Yoongi is not allowing himself to forget. So at the end of the video, Agust D shoots the tyrant by using an army revolver. This implies not only that you are the greatest weapon he has against his enemies, but also that you are the medium through which he keeps himself in check. You destroy his haters and you keep him grounded in reality. So next time you feel bad about yourself, stream D2 and give yourself a break.
So we started off this deep dive into Yoongi and his music and his background with a bang. And while I said before I'm no longer going to be surprised by anything that they do, I know that I'll continually be impressed just at the depth of the work that they do. And it's just amazing that it always goes back to ARMY. I'm glad I'm starting to dive into Yoongi and learn more about him. I'm just excited to develop a greater sense of appreciation for him through probably these next several weeks. So if you're still here with me, go ahead and crush that like button for this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on those notifications so that you're alerted to when new videos come out. Thanks for joining me. I am Chalfant, and this is Chalfant TV. And as Jimin says, you nice, keep going.